When you're making a high-stakes decision in business, relying on someone else's old data is a huge gamble. That's why being able to gather your own fresh data isn't just a neat skill, it's a professional superpower. So let's dive into how you can master primary data collection.
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. When you rely on data that wasn't collected for your specific problem, you're working with information that might be outdated or totally irrelevant. You're making these incredibly important calls using hand-me-down information. And honestly, that's a massive risk.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about this hand-me-down data problem. Then we'll get into why owning your own insights is such a game changer. After that, we'll look at the different ways to collect data, expose some hidden challenges, and wrap up with how to get data you can actually trust without all the hassle.
Okay, let's get right into it. We're talking about moving beyond what we call secondary data. That's the stuff that's already out there, available to everyone. Instead, we're going to focus on primary data, which is pretty much the perfect cure for making big decisions based on somebody else's old news.
So what is primary data collection exactly? Well, it's the process of getting brand new, original information straight from the source. The key here is that it's gathered to answer your specific question. This means you get raw, proprietary data that no one else has. It's yours. And this is where you really start to build a strategic advantage. Owning your own insights isn't just about having cool, unique information. It's about giving yourself a serious competitive edge because you're making moves based on data that's perfectly aligned with your goals.
And the difference is pretty huge. Think of it like this. Primary data is a custom-tailored suit. It fits you perfectly, you have total control over the fabric and the cut, it's highly accurate, and it's exclusively yours. Secondary data? That's the off-the-rack option. Sure, it's cheaper and faster, but you're giving up that perfect fit, that control, and that exclusivity.
Okay, so you've decided you want that custom suit. How do you actually get it made? Well, that brings us to the researcher's toolkit. There are a bunch of different methods, and the one you choose really depends on what you're trying to find out.
We can basically group all these methods into three main pillars. You've got digital and online, which is super fast and lets you reach tons of people. Then there's traditional offline stuff like deep dive interviews, which give you really rich, detailed insights. And third, you have passive observation, which is all about capturing how people behave naturally. Honestly, the best research these days often mixes and matches all three. Now, within those methods, there's another really important split. You have quantitative research, which gives you the hard numbers, the what and how many, and then you have qualitative, which gives you the stories behind those numbers, the why. The smartest projects don't pick one or the other. They use qualitative insights to come up with a theory, and then use quantitative data to prove it works on a bigger scale.
All right, collecting your own data sounds amazing, right? But here's the catch. Doing it all yourself is filled with hidden traps. Let's talk about the pitfalls that can totally sink your research if you're not paying attention. Let's talk about a really common one, survey fatigue. If you ask way too many questions, or they're just boring, people check out. They start clicking random answers just to be done with it. And that bad data, it's like a virus. It contaminates your entire analysis, leading you to the wrong conclusions and costing you big time. And that's just one of the hurdles, not to mention things like participant bias or even outright fraud that can sabotage everything. So how do you protect yourself from these nightmares? The answer is a professional-grade quality assurance playbook. This isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping for good data. It's about building a system that guarantees data integrity from the very beginning.
A real QA strategy has multiple layers. First, you use trap questions. These are super simple checks to catch anyone who's just speeding through without reading. Second, there's digital fingerprinting, which is a clever way to stop the same person from trying to take your survey over and over. And third, you use consistency logic, which automatically flags if someone says one thing on question 5 and the complete opposite on question 10. This is what turns a simple collection of opinions into rock-solid market intelligence.
And all this brings us to the holy grail, getting that professional quality, but doing it on a massive scale and doing it efficiently. This is where you can use a professional service to get all the amazing benefits of primary data without the nightmare of building this whole quality system yourself. Just look at that number. With a service like ClickWorker, you get instant access to a global community of over 8 million people. That is the power of having a huge, diverse pool of participants ready to give you the exact insights you need right when you need them.
And this is the bottom line. Professional services like ClickWorker completely get rid of that old choice between fast and good. They offer the most efficient way to run perfectly targeted online surveys, letting you get reliable, high-quality data in a fraction of the time.
So, at the end of the day, mastering primary data collection isn't really about just collecting more information. It's about securing a real strategic advantage. It's time to move beyond just gathering data and start securing verified, first-hand truth.